4 days postpartum, and he's already diagnosed the problem. Not the sleep deprivation, not the recovery, not the woman who just pushed 8 pounds of his firstborn son into the world on a live-streamed hospital bed, the refrigerator. Johnathan Jamall Porter came home to find the kitchen understocked, and somewhere between the delivery room and his own front door, the man concluded that the person 4 days removed from childbirth had failed to preload the groceries. The baby is named after him. The fridge is her fault. Hold those two things side by side, because they are about to matter more than anything else in this story. And real quick, before this paper trail unrolls, if you're the type who reads the whole filing instead of the headline, hit the notification bell and lock in, because this stack of receipts is heavier than the birth announcement. Here's the setup, stripped of all the circus music. On August 18, 2026, Johnathan Jamall Porter, you know him as Blueface, and Nevaeh Akira welcomed a son, Johnathan Jamall Porter Jr., during a hospital stay that was live-streamed on Kick. The baby weighed 8 pounds and arrived 5 days ahead of the August 24th due date Nevaeh had shared back in July. This is Blueface's 4th child, his first with Nevaeh. The labor actually started while he was midstream, dropping Chrisean Rock off at the airport. Nevaeh called him, told him contractions were 2 minutes apart and she was 3 centimeters dilated, alone. He rerouted to the hospital. WAC 100 was reportedly in the building for the birth. Nevaeh confirmed the name on Instagram. Johnathan Porter Jr. is born. And then, days later, the homecoming livestream started. And that's where this story actually lives. One more sheet for the folder before the filings begin, because the original brief ran out of room for it. The platform carrying every minute of this window was Kick, the hospital, the homecoming, all of it, and the man standing inside the delivery room while medical staff worked was WAC 100, Blueface longtime manager, Born Cash Jones, who XXL confirms showed up at the hospital as the birth was underway. Not a grandparent, not a sibling, the manager. Why the manager stood closer to that birth than most of the family tree is a question I'm going to answer before this episode ends. Keep it warm. Let's lay the paper on the table first. No interpretation. Just what's documented. The birth itself. Per complex, Johnathan Jr. arrived on Tuesday, August 18th, streamed in real time. The shade room adds a detail the headline coverage mostly skipped. The baby's name was changed. Months earlier, Nevaeh had publicly floated the name Solar Porter. On the Kick stream after the birth, she revealed the switch to Johnathan Jamall Porter Jr. Solar got retired. The government name won. Sit with that name change for a minute, because it comes back later. In the footage Blueface shared post-birth, he's at Nevaeh's bedside in a grey robe, holding the newborn, looking the baby over, and saying, on camera, "I think I'm the baby daddy." That quote is in the Shade Room's report. He said that at the hospital. Within the same week, per the raw stream footage circulating, he ordered a DNA test, in Nevaeh's words, fast as a, well, you can fill in the blank. Fast. 4 days before the birth, on August 14th. Police were called to Blueface home after he live-streamed himself kicking a heavily pregnant Nevaeh into a pool. She told deputies there was no altercation and she wasn't injured. No arrest. Days before that, per the same outlet, Blueface bolted from the house after finding Nevaeh praying beside candles in a closet. He accused her of practicing voodoo and left. The homecoming streams. The footage that set the timeline on fire shows Nevaeh, days postpartum, in a heated back and forth with Blueface over, among other things, the empty refrigerator. She references postpartum directly. He laughs. He tells the chat he'll be nicer for your postpartum period, then asks the room how long postpartum lasts. He tells her she's disrespecting him because the fridge is empty. She says, on stream, the refrigerator's empty. That's disrespect. He responds, I just got back. What are you doing here? The exchange spirals from there, groceries, who did what for the house that day, whether ordering food counts as contribution. Now, that same footage, and this part is reported, not my read, shows an earlier moment where Blueface allegedly hit Nevaeh's toddler son superior with his phone during a separate argument, causing the child to cry. That's the report. Nevaeh later references the incident in her own stream comments, which Jaidyn Alexis would pick up. Blueface on-stream verdict about the whole situation, delivered to his chat, Nevaeh is cooked. She's on one. He frames himself as the reasonable party in a house he says he wants to stay in, but only if she can, quote, acquire the basics before they move into the new house he's been talking about since he got out. The new house. Keep that pinned. We'll get there. The Jaidyn Alexis response stream. Jaidyn, mother of Javaughn and Journey Porter, the two kids Blueface shares with her, went live and unloaded. The coverage from multiple outlets confirmed she called him out for saying her kids were replaceable, and she went further. You said Javaughn and Journey are replaceable. How dare you? She claimed her house is in foreclosure. She said, quote, you're broke. You're in foreclosure. She alleged Blueface used her phone to text a lawyer about foreclosure and bankruptcy. She said he's getting swatted every day. And she landed the line that's been echoing across every platform since. My kids are priceless. Irreplaceable. I would die about mine. Beyond the 6 exhibits, the folders carrying loose sheets, 2 quotes that sit adjacent to the paper without changing its shape. Documented, attributed, no interpretation attached. First loose sheet. The moment the labor news broke, it didn't break to Nevaeh's family on camera. It broke to the chat. Chat, we may be having a baby, he told viewers midstream, per XXL. The woman carrying his son was 3 centimeters dilated, contractions 2 minutes apart, alone, and the first audience for that information was a scrolling comment feed on a Monetized channel. Who? Second loose sheet. And this one's older paper that nobody pulled this week. In an earlier interview cycle documented by Hot New Hip Hop, Wack 100 stated publicly about Blueface's son with Chrisean Rock that the baby was at risk and needs to be in a hospital. On record. About an infant. From the manager. Sit with who said that. Not a blogger. Not a fan page. The man who was standing in the delivery room this week. That's the paper. 6 exhibits. Now let's overlay them. Okay. So here's where the timeline starts doing something the timeline probably didn't intend. August 11th, voodoo accusation. He leaves the house. August 14th, pool kick. Cops respond. No arrest. August 18th, baby born. Live streamed. Name change from Solar to Johnathan Jr. roughly August 22nd. The refrigerator argument streams. Days later, Jaidyn unloads. Now wait, back up. Because the detail that snagged me wasn't the fridge. It wasn't even the postpartum laughing, as bad as that looked. It's the name change. Months ago, the baby was going to be Solar Porter. Public. Announced. Then the birth happens, the stream is rolling, and suddenly the baby carries his father's exact government name, first, middle, suffix. Johnathan Jamall Porter Jr. And in the same window of time, the father is on camera saying, I think I'm the baby daddy and ordering a DNA test, per the footage, at speed. So here's the tension, and I'll be honest about it, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know why that name changed. Maybe Nevaeh wanted it. Maybe it's sentimental. But the sequence, a name that erases the mother's choice and replaces it with a carbon copy of the father's identity, at the exact moment the father is publicly questioning paternity, that sequence reads less like a celebration and more like a claim. A stamp. Junior isn't just a name. In a family with 4 kids by 3 women, Junior is a flag planted in the ground. And that lines up with the second overlay. The replaceable comment. Blueface said, and Jaidyn quoted him directly, that Javaughn and Journey, his children with her, are replaceable. That is making new kids, tossing the old ones aside. Now, pair that with the name change. Javaughn and Journey don't carry his name. Johnathan Jr. does. The kids who got replaced are the ones without the suffix. The kid who arrived 5 days early into a house with an empty fridge and a police log got the full government name before his umbilical cord stump fell off. Actually, hold up. Let me be fair for a second. There's a counter-read here, and it's not crazy. Blueface has 4 kids. Fathers name sons after themselves all the time. It doesn't have to mean anything. And if that's where you land, I hear you. But the pattern, the DNA test speed run, the replaceable framing, the junior stamp, the way he talked about Jaidyn's kids versus the way he performed fatherhood with the newborn on camera, the pattern reads as hierarchy. Not affection. Hierarchy. And hierarchies get enforced, which is exactly what Jaidyn said was coming. There's one more sheet that's been sitting in the folder this whole time. I saved it for the overlay because it doesn't belong to the filing, it belongs to the sequence. Footage circulated through TMZ's TikTok shows Blueface and Nevaeh swabbing their days-old son for DNA test. On live stream, chat watching, newborn in frame. Not a test ordered quietly at a clinic between pediatrician visits. A swab, performed as programming. So run the sequence one more time with that sheet added, the name change lands on a stream. The baby daddy doubt lands on a stream. The paternity check itself lands on a stream. Every step of this child's first week on Earth exists as content because a camera was Monet-izing it. The DNA test wasn't an errand. It was an episode. Now layer the August 17th stream underneath all of it. Baller Alerts account notes Blueface learned Nevaeh was in labor while he was live streaming that Monday, which means the airport drop-off with Chrisean wasn't just a ride, it was broadcast. The labor call interrupted content, then became content, and the hospital run that followed was content too. I sat with that longer than I wanted to, because it rearranges the whole week. There is no private minute anywhere in this window. Even the contraction timing, 2 minutes apart, 3 centimeters, reached him through a phone screen with a chat scrolling underneath it. When a family's most medical hour has an audience, the audience isn't witnessing the family. The audience is part of the family structure. Everybody else, Nevaeh upstairs with a newborn, Jaidyn across town with the older two, is talent. What you moved inside the same week, too. Carlissa Saffold Harvey, Blueface's own mother, entered the chat publicly after the replaceable line traveled, per the posts captured on Facebook. A man's mother stepping in front of the mother of his children to object to his wording. That doesn't happen inside quiet, healthy family systems, and anybody who's followed this crew longer than a news cycle knows Carlissa doesn't side with her son by default. Pair her entrance with the at-risk file on whack. The manager has flagged a baby's welfare in public before. The mother broke ranks in public this week. The 2 adults closest to the operation have now both gone on record, at different times, about the kids. And the man at the center kept streaming through all of it. The pattern reads as a house where the people nearest to him already know and say so, while the machine runs anyway. One last overlay, and it reframes the entire calendar. The foreclosure chatter references filings dated June 2026. June. 2 months before the pool. 2 months before the birth. Which means money pressure was already sitting in the mailbox when the voodoo exit happened, when deputies knocked, when the new house got dangled over postpartum kitchen. A man carrying a June filing spends his August differently. The chaos of that week wasn't random weather. It looks like pressure hunting for exits, and the exits happen to be streamed. I'm not saying a mortgage explains a refrigerator. I'm saying the calendar put them in the same house. 3 lenses. Small details. Big weight. First lens. The digital one. The TikTok reveal. The Shade Room cites Nevaeh's own TikTok as the source for the name change. She shared the switch from Solar Porter on the Kickstream months after telling people the name was Solar. Nobody asked her why. Nobody's covering that. A name change isn't nothing. In this family, where names are basically inventory, Chrisean Jr., Javaughn, Journey, now Johnathan Jr., a renamed baby is a re-ranked baby. Second lens, the behavioral one. Count the geography of the streams. During labor, Nevaeh's location was alone, calling him while he was in a car with Chrisean Rock, headed to the airport. During the homecoming, Nevaeh's location was upstairs, holding a 4-day-old, while he streamed arguments about groceries and told the chat she was cooked. And where was Chrisean Rock during the birth coverage? At the airport, dropped off by the man whose girlfriend was 3 centimeters dilated. I had to read that twice to make sure I wasn't misreading it. The labor call interrupted a ride with the ex. The man built a delivery room in trance out of a Chrisean drop-off. That's not a subplot. That's the architecture. Third lens. The money one. Jaidyn's stream made a specific, checkable allegation. Foreclosure. She said it directly. Your house is in foreclosure, and claimed he used her phone to text lawyers about it, plus bankruptcy. Separately, posts circulating with dates reference filings from June 2026 claiming missed mortgage payments. Now, that's a reported claim, not a pulled document. I'm flagging that distinction on purpose. But if the foreclosure chatter is real, then every new house promise Blueface has made for the past year, the house he dangled over Nevaeh's head in the same breath he called her cooked, isn't a plan. It's a placeholder. You don't promise a new house while quietly texting lawyers about losing the current one. Unless the promise was never for her. 3 more slides under the same microscope. Different lenses than the first pass. The audio lens. Listen to the order of operations on the labor stream, not the words, the sequence. The chat gets the announcement. Nevaeh, mid-labor and alone, gets a phone call. Audibly, the priority list has a ranking, and the woman delivering his son isn't at the top of it. Now, I don't love how clean that reads, so I check my own bias. Streamers address chat reflexively. It's muscle memory, it's the job, it might mean nothing. But muscle memory is exactly the point. A reflex tells you where the attention lives when nobody's performing. And his reflex, in the biggest hour of her life, pointed at the audience. The legal lens. The August 14th response ended with no arrest because Nevaeh told deputies there was no altercation and she wasn't injured. But zoom in on the exchange itself. Per an account documenting the police response, the deputy's question to her was a specific one. Were you kicked? Not are you okay? The officer's phrasing already carried the footage inside it. And her answer, no altercation, no injury, is now a record. Records cut both ways. If anything is ever filed later, custody, protective order, anything, that afternoon's paperwork will get quoted back in some conference room by somebody's attorney as the alleged victim denied any altercation at the scene. I'm not a lawyer, and this isn't legal analysis. It's pattern recognition. The paper that shields him today was written by the person with the least power in that house 4 days before she delivered his namesake. That's what a documented denial does. It outlives the moment, and it works for whoever it protects. Last lens, visual, and I'll be honest, I went back and forth on including this one. The gray robe. It's in the birth footage, it's in the thumbnails, and at first glance it reads like a man who grabbed whatever was closest and rushed to the hospital. Maybe. I'll allow that read fully, because it could genuinely be true. But zoom out to the whole frame, robe, camera positioned, newborn presented to lens, paternity doubt delivered clean on the first take. The robe is the only item in the frame that looks unprepared. Everything else looks staged for broadcast. When the single unpolished detail in a shot is the wardrobe starts reading as costume. That's a read, not a receipt. I'm labeling it that way on purpose, because the difference matters in this episode more than most. Now watch how the same facts got dressed in different outfits. The mainstream entertainment framing, complex, TMZ, the Shade Room, played this as a birth story. Blueface welcomes fourth child. Hospital livestream, £8, robe jokes in the comments. The framing choice there is tone, quirky celebrity chaos. Look at the robe, haha, he clutched it like a proud grandma. And that's a legitimate read of the birth footage. But it's a frame that evaporates the moment you add the 4 days later footage. The robe stops being funny when the same man is laughing at the phrase postpartum while the mother of that baby cries on stream. The fan camp framing, and this is the one flooding the comments, splits into two armies. One camp says Jaidyn is bitter, she's been replaced, this is what jealousy sounds like, and her foreclosure claims are deflection. The other camp says Nevaeh signed up for this, she watched him do it to everybody before her, and the tears are the cost of the bed she made. Add 2 more outfits to the rack, because they dress the same week in even softer fabric. Baller Alert ran the story as pure celebration. Welcome baby boy, labor hours, congratulations energy. What's buried in that framing is everything from the previous 7 days, the pool, the police response, the closet exit. The verb set is all arrival and joy, 0 audit. That's a choice, and it's a profitable one. Congratulations travel further than scrutiny, and nobody in the history of entertainment media ever lost a click blessing a baby. The softest framing of the entire week, though, lives inside a single word. Yahoo's entertainment desk described the August 14th incident as Blueface playfully kicking Nevaeh into the pool. Playfully. One adverb doing the work of an entire PR firm. The deputies who responded to that house weren't watching an adverb, they were watching footage, and their documented question was, were you kicked? When the police log carries a question mark and the coverage carries playfully, the framing war stops being left versus right. It's documentation versus decoration. And then there's the loudest counter-narrative, the one somebody in the comments is absolutely typing right now, it's all content. They're all in on it. The streams are Monetized. The tears are scripted. You all are getting played by a family that figured out dysfunction pays more than music. I respect that read. Genuinely. The gig economy rewards exactly this kind of chaos, and Blueface has been farming his personal life for content since Blue Girls Club. But here's where that red collapses under paper. Police don't get called for content. TMZ reported deputies responded to the pool incident. That's a real-world record, not a storyline. A courthouse foreclosure filing, if Jaidyn's claim holds, is not a bit. A DNA test is not a prop, and a 4-day-old baby does not know its content. The It's All Fake frame requires you to believe that law enforcement, the court system, and a newborn are all cast members. That's too many extras. And the Nevaeh knew what she signed up for frame. That's the one I want to take apart most carefully, because it sounds like accountability but functions as a smokescreen. Yes, Nevaeh watched him do this to other women. Yes, she got pregnant anyway. Both true. But she knew doesn't restock a refrigerator. She knew doesn't answer why a man who demanded she have his son can't hold the baby while she showers. She knew is a sentence people say so they don't have to say the other sentence, the one where a grown man looked at a woman 4 days out of labor and decided the problem was groceries. Scroll any fan page this week and one more sentence keeps recycling, and it deserves better than a drive-by. Nevaeh's no bystander. She streams too, she claps back, she knows exactly how this economy works. And honestly, partial credit. She does stream. She gave as good as she got in the refrigerator exchange. That's disrespect is her line, landed flat and clean. Treating her like a passive prop would erase her own agency, and I'm not doing that. The paperwork, though, leans the other way. The same woman who knows how the economy works spent her labor alone, calling a man who was broadcasting a ride with his ex. She answered no altercation to deputies 4 days before delivering. Her one announced choice in this entire window, the name Solar, got overruled on his stream, and the chat-first announcement of her labor happened before anybody called her family. Agency explains participation. It doesn't explain the deputy's question, the geography of that Monday, or why every milestone of her motherhood premiered on his channel under his narration. The she's in on it frame survives contact with her streaming. It does not survive contact with the sequence. The mainstream read of this week is, Blueface had a baby. Blueface is messy. The girls are fighting. Pass the popcorn. That's the comfortable version. Here's the version the paper actually supports. This was never a love triangle. It's a loyalty economy, and Blueface runs it like a payday lender. The comfortable version had help. By the way, Complex ran the week as a birth announcement, robe, 8 pounds, welcome baby. And that's the frame that traveled, because it's a frame that costs nothing. But stack the new paper on top of the economy and watch it confirm the structure, the chat-first announcement. The were you kicked answer. The swab as programming. Every one of those is a transaction, attention out, money in, and every one was executed by the man at the center, on his channel, under his terms. Look at the structure. 4 children, 3 mothers, 1 man at the center holding every asset. The house, the platform, the audience, the name. Every woman in this economy gets paid in the same currency, proximity, and every one of them pays interest in the same currency. Public humiliation on a schedule he controls. Jaidyn got 2 kids and a foreclosure rumor. Chrisean got a son and a street fight he watched happen. Nevaeh got a junior and a refrigerator audit 4 days postpartum. And the moment any of them stops performing gratitude, the currency devalues. Kids become replaceable. Partners become cooked. The house you're living in becomes a house you're failing to earn. The lender keeps meticulous books, too. Notice the due dates. Jaidyn's loyalty invoice arrived the same week her house rumor hit foreclosure. Nevaeh's arrived 9 to 6 hours after delivery, itemized in groceries. Payday lending doesn't do grace periods. Neither does this. And here's the part that should chill you, because it chilled me. The system doesn't hide. It streams. The pool kick was live-streamed. The birth was live-streamed. The refrigerator fight was live-streamed. The humiliation isn't a bug in the loyalty economy, it's the product. Every woman who cries on his stream is a deposit in his relevance account. He doesn't need a label advance. He needs a new mother crying in a kitchen, and the algorithm cuts the check. Okay, I have to step out of the cadence for a second, because one line in this filing doesn't belong inside a rhythm. The toddler, superior, Nevaeh's little boy, not his child, allegedly got hit with a phone mid-argument, and the reporting says it made him cry. Everything else in this episode is strategy and framing and economics. That line is just a small kid crying in a kitchen where adults perform for a chat. Take a breath. I did. The economy metaphor holds for the adults. The kids aren't in an economy. They're in a house. And the house has a police log. Somebody in the comments is going to say the women are complicit, that they're cashing the same checks. And some of that's true. Jaidyn's response stream had its own audience, its own energy, its own monetization. Everybody in this ecosystem eats off it. But notice who sets the terms. Notice who decides whose kids count. Notice who renamed the baby. Notice who laughed. I'll extend a little sympathy where it might not be popular. I don't think Blueface invented this machine. He came up inside an industry that monetized dysfunction long before Kick existed, and Whack 100, the manager, the man inside the delivery room, built a career managing exactly this species of chaos. And there's your delivery room answer, the one I told you to keep warm. In a loyalty economy, the manager isn't a guest at the birth. His staff, the man who holds the paperwork, stands closer than family, because in this structure he is the paperwork. Last jab, and it's almost funny until it isn't. The man audited a refrigerator belonging to a woman 4 days removed from delivering his namesake, while allegedly texting lawyers from somebody else's phone about losing the house the refrigerator sits in. The groceries were never about groceries. This one's going to divide the timeline, but the paper doesn't care about the timeline. Auditing somebody else's kitchen while your own mortgage circulates as a rumor is a choice. Well, a choice he made on camera. And one more thing, and I'll say it plain because nobody else is saying it. The person with the least power in this entire story is 4 days old, named after the man who publicly questioned whether he's his, and living in a house where the police already know the address. That's not tea. That's a file that's going to stay open. Javaughn, Journey, Chrisean Jr. Superior, who isn't even his. And now Johnathan Jr. 5 kids orbiting one man who told the world 2 of them were replaceable. The kids can't unsubscribe. Watch what happens when the DNA results come back. If Blueface ordered that test at the speed Nevaeh described, the result lands within weeks, and whichever way it lands, he wins the content cycle. If he's confirmed the father, he gets that "I knew it, I just had to be sure" redemption stream. If anything else surfaces, the loyalty economy gets a foreclosure of its own. Either way, the receipts get monetized. That's the likely landing. Nothing resolves, everything streams, and the baby becomes a recurring character before he can focus his eyes. The reveal won't just post, either expect it to premiere. Thumbnail, countdown, maybe Whack narrating the envelope. By the next content cycle, don't be shocked when the redemption version includes a fully restocked refrigerator as set design. The apology will be staged in the same kitchen as the audit. And watch the title geography shift again. If the swab surprises anybody, Junior becomes the most awkward name in the streaming economy overnight, and the solar footage gets resurrected as evidence that somebody, at some point, wanted a different future for that boy. But don't be surprised if the wild card is Jaidyn. She said she has the messages, the lawyer texts about foreclosure and bankruptcy, sent from her phone. If she actually drops those screenshots, this stops being a relationship story and becomes a financial one. A documented money crisis changes the entire leverage map, the new house narrative dies, the swatting claims get re-examined, and every platform paying him for chaos starts asking whether the chaos is covering the bills or creating them. One falsifiable prediction. And you can come back and check me on this. If Jaidyn posts receipts of lawyer texts with dates, Blueface responds within 48 hours by attacking her character, not her evidence. Character attacks are what you deploy when the paper isn't on your side. Watch the secondary players once the paper moves. Expect Carlissa to re-enter within a news cycle. She's already demonstrated she'll break ranks in public, and grandmothers don't need invitations twice. The new house phrase is about to vanish from his vocabulary entirely. Dead narratives don't get corrected on these streams, they get dropped. And by the following week, expect the platforms to keep paying. But listen to the adverbs. The coverage language will soften before the money does. Playfully was the beta test. And once the dust settles on all of it, the residue. 5 years from now, the streams will be clips, the relationships will be whatever they are, and the story everyone tells about this era of Blueface won't be Thusiana. It'll be the week he live-streamed a birth and then live-streamed himself laughing at the mother for being tired. The culture is building an archive on this man in real time, and archives don't forget. Junior will be able to watch all of it someday. The fridge fight, the DNA order, the robe, every second, preserved by the same platform that paid for it. That's the aftershock nobody's pricing in. The receipts don't expire, and the kids learn to read. By the time Junior can operate a search bar, expect the archive to have grown its own commentary layer, reaction videos to the refrigerator fight, documentary episodes about the streams, the deputy's question filed under his father's name forever. The next 5 years will also test the suffix itself. Junior either grows into that name or grows up explaining it. And once these kids start typing their own names into the internet, the loyalty economy inherits its first auditors, ones who can't be paid off, blocked, or called replaceable. So here's where it lands. I told you at the top that the name and the refrigerator were the two things to hold side by side, and now you've seen why. The name was a claim of ownership. The refrigerator was a demand for service. 4 days after giving him an heir, Nevaeh Akira got audited for groceries. And 2 kids in another house got told they were replaceable by the same mouth that said, "I think I'm the baby daddy," into a camera. That's the case. You saw the paper. Drop where you land in the comments, especially if you've got a receipt the team hasn't seen yet. Somebody out there knows what actually happened with that foreclosure filing, and I want to see it. If this is the kind of breakdown that fits your feed, you already know what to do. Like, subscribe, hit the bell so the next case doesn't get buried in the algorithm. This case isn't closed. Rap and Receipt keeps the screenshots. Part 2 is already in research.